Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and we're going to talk about day 2 of NBA free agency. Myles Turner is now a Milwaukee Buck, and Damian Lillard has entered free agency somehow after the team waived and stretched him in order to sign Myles Turner. We're going to talk about Duncan Robinson going to the Detroit Pistons, some of the other moves that the Denver Nuggets have made, as well as a few other signings. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? I'm glad to be here on day 2 recap. I will say I was a little disappointed I missed the day 1 recap, but I also feel like that was such madness. I don't even know how you recap. I saw you guys went 2.5 hours. I had my kid's baseball game. I had some work I had to get done, but I'm excited to recap day 2. Not quite as many things to run through, a little bit of a chance to take a deep breath, and I'm sure we'll recap some of day 1 as we go through day 2 teams as well.
I think that there was no move as crazy as the thing that happened this morning.
I would agree with that.
On day 1, but it was just madness, trying to run through everything that occurred, obviously. I mean, let's just kind of jump into it, right? I did not see a world where the Bucks would waive and stretch Damian Lillard, because I thought that at the end of the day, they would be too worried about the long-term ramifications, given that even if you're doing this in order to keep Giannis, right? I would imagine that Giannis is involved in this move in some way, shape, or form. That he at least gave the clearance that if you make this move, I'm not, who knows, right? Maybe he didn't say I'm not going to ask out, but maybe the Bucks are just like, okay, we're going to do this in order to try and get him to stay. I did not see this coming, that the team would take that risk, because even if you do keep him for a year, I don't know, man, it's still a risk that you end up with 4 years holding the bag with Damian Lillard's deal on your books for $22 million. And it gets less onerous. It gets less convoluted and complicated. But man, this is a big swing. This is an absolute enormous swing from the Milwaukee Bucks, John Horst, everybody involved. And here we are. Myles Turner has been stolen from the Indiana Pacers. If you thought that rivalry was hot before this happened, man, this thing's about to get absolutely crazy, I feel like, when Myles Turner suits up for the Milwaukee Bucks. 4 years, $107 million for Myles Turner. And I'm genuinely so fascinated to talk about all of the moving parts here. Bryce, what was your immediate reaction when you saw this?
Yeah, so the Turner thing first was like, oh my gosh, I did not see this. I just had resigned to the fact that he would return to Indiana. And especially when I saw the contract, I was like, wow, Indiana didn't match that or even exceed it just a little bit. And so that was my first thought. And then it was, okay, how's this going to work? Are we getting a sign-in trade? What is happening here? And then the Dame news broke, and I was like, wow, this got really crazy. And then I'll be honest, Sam, I look at this roster and I'm Giannis is incredible. And when you have Giannis, especially in the East, you always have a chance. But am I excited about a Bucks team where Myles Turner is your second best player and your 4 best players, or at least most expensive players, are all front court players? This is the Dallas Mavericks, but no guard play whatsoever. And you don't have the number 1 pick from this year's draft in Cooper Flag. I'm just I still don't love this roster, Sam. And so I understand you have to try to keep Giannis. You have to try to make him happy. You got to try to win now. I get all of it. But as you mentioned, this is a big, big swing for a team that I don't think is top 4 in the East right now as we record on July 1st.
I think they're going to be close is kind of where I'm at. Like,
Maybe
I
fourth,
think that they're
maybe.
in that like 4 or 5 group still with Giannis, which is interesting. And we'll talk about that maybe in a second here. I do just want to like focus quickly on the Lillard piece of it before we move on.
Yeah, sure.
Damian Lillard. The numbers here on this like stretch, they're completely crazy. Like stretching somebody for $22.5 million over the next 5 years. That means you're basically paying Myles Turner for the next 4 years, like a cap hold of $46 million, because you're doing this for Myles Turner, right?
Yep.
And you're doing it to keep Giannis as well, but you're doing it for Myles Turner. You're basically paying like $47 million for Myles Turner. And that number goes up. Like Myles Turner in 2029 is going to be making 28.6. It's actually going to be like 50.
Yep.
That's a wild number. And I think that and this comes from me, I think that bigs who can shoot and protect the rim are worth their weight in gold, especially with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like it is an essential necessity if you're going to employ Giannis Antetokounmpo that you have a floor spacing big man on the team. And Myles Turner, I don't know if he's the best one out there. He's in the top group for sure. He certainly, like, you can't get past 4 or 5 names before you get to Myles Turner. So I do think that overpaying for Myles Turner on some level is worth it for the Bucks.
Hold on. Take everything. Do you think it's an overpay just the contract though? Like I just want to make sure things are clear here. I don't scoff at that contract at all in a vacuum. Now it's not a vacuum because other things had to be made. If they could have just signed Myles Turner to $25 million a year, I would have had no issues with that, Sam. It's all of the other things that are going with it that then make it.
Yeah, it's for his 29, 30, 31, and 32 years.
So it's getting there, sure.
I think I need to like remove the last few days of Myles Turner's season.
That's
in like the last few weeks of Myles Turner's season.
So this was going to be my point.
Moving well.
No.
Yeah.
So that we've never got hey, Myles was playing through an injury, but I said multiple times, like, I don't think he's moving great. And there were times like, this does not look good down the stretch of the playoffs in the conference finals and the NBA finals. And so like, that is another like point to this, but I guess just for me, if you just said like, hey, you said it, floor spacing big with Giannis is something that's really important. I don't mind the contract in a vacuum, adding that to Giannis. It's just, again, everything else that went with it. And the age it's an important factor with somebody, all 7-footers or whatever he is. Like those things seem to, you start to worry about them a touch earlier than maybe a wing or something like that.
I think that it's probably the right number. I just wish it was 3 years. And
Fair.
maybe we'll get, like, do we know that it's 4 fully guaranteed?
So anytime I say anything, so I don't have to say it multiple times, I get my stuff from Spotrac and Spotrac with Keith Smith. Right now it has player option according to this.
Then yeah, it's fully guaranteed. It is definitely fully guaranteed. So yes, I think that the deal is not, like, I would have rather paid Myles Turner, and they didn't have a mechanism to do this because like they're tight up against it, and I'll explain how they're doing all of these moves here just in terms of order of operations in a second. But it basically had to be 4 if you wanted to get him to 9 figures. I would have rather paid him like 300, honestly, than 4,107, even though it's drastically higher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like the year over year is drastically higher, just because I worry about him in that year 32 season. But it's hard because he's a player that generally up until the last 2 years has missed like 15 to 20 games, but then did a really good job of over the last year and 2 years of playing 77 and 72 games, right? And played through some injuries in the playoffs. It felt
Deep
like
deep
playoff runs as well, both years. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt on some level, but guys don't get healthier when they get older. You know what I mean? Especially 7-footers, right? So the player is he's a great player. That's a great fit in Milwaukee. It's just that this is where I want to go back to Lillard now.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard stretching $112 or $111 million is larger than the combined value of the 3 biggest like stretch provision deals that have ever occurred. And I believe that Mike Vorkunov got that. Like he went through. Joakim Noah was the biggest. It was 38 million. Darren Williams was 27.5 million. Nick Batum, 27 million. And then the fourth one like gets close even. Like it's almost as big as the top 4 because Josh Smith, I think, got 26 or so from the Detroit Pistons. And man, like you're at 54.6 plus 37.8 is like 91 point, whatever, right? 92.4 to do the math on it real quick. Like that's 111 in dead money is crazy money, guys. That is fucking crazy money.
Yeah. I don't know what to think of it until we see how it hampers them moving forward. Right? Like I just think that eventually we're just going to be like, oh, it's the Dame contract. You just look at this team, Sam, all of the draft picks, and then you just have
you have the thing about this too, Bryce, is like they have no way to get off of that money. Like you can't like transfer that money to another team in a deal.
Yeah.
Like that money is on your books for 5 years.
Yeah. It's worse than, a bad contract, right? Like you could attach a pick to a bad contract and get off of it or whatever. It seems like, and in some ways I don't blame them. Giannis is going into his age 31 season. You got to try to get the most out of these next 3 seasons. And maybe that's the idea. Like Turner is the best the best acquisition we're going to be able to get. We have nothing to trade for people. Like we're just going to go for it. It just, again, to me, it's like, I understand that. Is that enough? And maybe with Giannis it is, right? Like with Giannis, you always have a chance. So maybe they're higher than a 4th or 5th. Maybe they're the favorites right now just because Giannis is so good. But I just look at the rest of the roster and I'm just very underwhelmed with it, even as much as I love the front court duo of those 2 guys.
So this will be my last thing before we get to that point, because I think that point is really important. My completely gross idea leading into the summer was, is there any way that the Phoenix Suns would do Damian Lillard for Bradley Beal? Like just disgusting, terrible idea that like nobody should be happy about hearing out. Are the Bucks better or worse if they do that deal?
Well, they're better, right? I mean,
I don't know if this deal is on the books either. Like, I'm just like completely guessing and like trying to come up with like an idea.
No. Sorry. That means you don't get Myles Turner. My bad. Sorry.
It means you do not get Myles Turner, but you have more flexibility here moving forward because Beal's deal becomes an expiring deal next summer, which means you can you basically take a gap year and then you take on a bunch of money, from long-term teams trying to like, get their books in order next summer that are interesting.
I think I would still feel the same about the team overall this year. Myles Turner's a more impactful player for this. I mean,
I agree. Myles Turner's a way better player than Bradley.
Yeah. The only thing I was trying to think is like, if you don't, I mean, people talk about Bradley Beal like he sucks. Bradley Beal was like actually a very efficient basketball player last year. Just, 2 times overpaid, 3 times overpaid, whatever it is. I just wonder, like, what center could you get? Like, if you told me we can trade Dame for Bradley Beal, and then, like, I'm not saying this is a great fit, but like, then we'll get DeAndre Ayton on the minimum or something, like some of the stuff we've like that would be my question, right? Is like, what center could you get if it was that? But like taking that out of the equation, because you just don't know. This year, you're definitely not better, most likely. Like, how much flexibility do they long term? Do they like, open a 3-year window? Or what's Giannis have left? 2 after this year?
This requires Beal to accept this contract, this deal, because he has a no trade clause. We don't know if he would want to go to Milwaukee. But B, does Giannis like just say, look, this is now a gap year. I don't want to do this.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very possible. So I at least wanted to bring up like alternatives here in some respect, because it might be that they just didn't have alternatives.
No,
right?
That's like, I'm going to continue to say what I've said twice already, while also acknowledging that I don't necessarily blame them for going for it. Like, this is the price of having one of the best players in the world on your team, is every year you need to be competing. And especially when they get to the end of their prime, and, you know, Giannis is approaching the end of his prime. Is that fair? The end of his prime, at least?
Probably.
He's probably got 2 or 3 more years of his prime, and he only has 2 guaranteed years with you, plus the player option. You have to go all in. I mean, you're pot committed if you're the Bucks, I feel like, until you're ready to trade him, right? So if you were not ready to trade him this offseason, or he didn't want to be traded or whatever, I understand them going for it. I just really question if it's enough. Also, before we get to that, do we want to do the Dame options now, or do we want to round back to that?
Let's save that for the end.
Okay.
I do want to talk about Milwaukee now, just in terms of the roster here moving forward.
Okay.
I think that they're a better team this year than what I thought they would be.
Okay.
And I think that ultimately why I would do this, and why I think that this is probably the right move for the Bucks, even though I've like kind of spent some time here decompressing a few separate things, right? And like running through a few separate ideas, right? The reason I think that this is probably the right move is I think that as soon as you get into having to trade Giannis, you're kind of tanking for the next few years as it is. So the Lillard 22 million doesn't really matter.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Right? It doesn't really matter.
Post Giannis, it doesn't matter.
Now, the argument against this is that it really hampers you in terms of being able to build your team.
Yes.
And I think that in an apron era where essentially a hard cap, and you're limiting your hard cap now to 20 million less than everybody else, it is exceptionally difficult to have that on your books. I just don't think they had a better option, is kind of where I'm at. If Giannis was not willing to do a gap year, like if Giannis said, look, I don't know what their meeting was like. I don't know if they've had a meeting yet. Like, I don't know any of this. But if they have the impression that Giannis is just like, I am not willing to have this gap year, right? In the middle of my or like near the end of my prime, I am not willing for us to not be competitive this year. If that was the case, I think I'm okay with this. The question is, do you just move Giannis at that point, right? I don't think that this stops you from doing that. And I don't think that the Lillard money being on your books is all that likely to hamper you long term if you move Giannis, because you're rebuilding anyway. So look, I don't think that this is I don't think this saves the Bucks. Like, I don't think that this is a thing that is some incredible deal that is going to result in another title in Milwaukee. It's just another like Band-Aid over a paper cut, or over a million paper cuts at this point. And this one is probably more of a gash that results in stitches, right?
Yeah.
And now you have like a piece of gauze over this like massive gap, because the gap is the $22 million you have less to spend on your roster over the course of the next 5 years, right?
Yep.
But I just don't know that I don't know if they had another option, unless the option is just move Giannis. And I feel like you can do that anyway at some point in the next 6 months or 12 months or whenever you want to, if this doesn't work.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a fair point where, okay, if you want to run this with Giannis, this is probably the best you could do, right? Because at the end of the day, he is a good fit in the front court. We both agree with that. Like this is a really nice fit in the front court. I would be interested if like what name or, you know, what player could have been better. Like if people think that there was a better option there. And like you said, then if you get to the deadline and you're 7th in the East and you're like, no, we're not good enough. You trade Giannis, you get your haul, you're rebuilding anyway. That $22 million is not going to matter in terms of, maybe you acquire a few less assets whenever you try to go under like when you try to do the Brooklyn Nets and, you know, get 50 million in cap space to take on bad contracts. You only have 30 million instead of 50. And that can hamper you a little bit in the rebuild. I would assume you'll be able to get off the Turner contract. Like if you had to, like, I mean, I think the full rebuild can still happen. So I understand it. This roster is interesting. I like those two. I just don't look at it and I'm like, yep, title contender. You know what I mean? And
it's not a title contender. I agree with you. But should we run through the roster now?
Yeah, because they've made a bunch of moves. Yeah.
Right. So you're probably looking at like Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Myles Turner as your starters.
Yep.
Bobby Portis, Gary Harris, Taurean Prince, AJ Green coming off your bench. With Jericho Sims as like your backup big man. You have the flyer on Andre Jackson here, I believe, who I think that they're able to keep in this. And they'll be able to remove Livingston from the contracts. And then you have Vasa Micic, who I would imagine is going to be like a slight guarantee with it just gets cut kind of at the end of the year or before the year starts. We'll see if that ends up kind of working itself out. But I think where I am a little bit different on some people is I do think that this team is a playoff team in the East. Like I feel quite confident of that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. I was talking to somebody today. We were actually talking about where we thought the Pistons like fell in the hierarchy, and like I still think all these quote unquote injured teams are gonna fill out the final couple spots of the playoffs and the play-in. Like,
I'm fairly worried about Boston right now, but I like this team is ahead of Boston to me right now.
I went through Boston's roster the other day and came away way less impressed than I thought whenever we talked about that a month ago. I was like, oh, this is, and I think partially that's because some of the guys I thought might come back, like Luke Cornett, did not. So yeah, sure, them, but like I was just think like them, Indiana, Boston. You know, like this tier of teams, like you still have Giannis, Sam. Like
I do think that this team is better than Indiana right now. Like with Halliburton, Indiana's way better. But I think
no. Without Myles Turner,
correct.
Milwaukee's better, right? Like if Turner went back to Indiana, this is a swing. I mean, we're talking about like
it's a huge swing.
The 5th or 6th seed or the 4th or 5th, you know, like we're talking that. We're not talking about the top team. Real quick, I realize it's July 1st, but we're talking Knicks, Cavs, and
Hawks and Magic.
Right? Like that would be my top 4 right now. Tier breaks notwithstanding, whatever. Like you could talk me into Milwaukee because of Giannis, like whatever. And Hawks, obviously, because, you know, like predicting really good health for Kristaps. But I think like if you told me that Milwaukee was the 5 seed, sure, right? Even the 4, like they end up better than one of those teams who doesn't have good injury health, or the Magic roster doesn't come together the way I think it's going to, something like that. I think Milwaukee's still a playoff team.
Yeah, and a big piece of this is going to be like, can Kevin Porter actually man the point guard position? You know, Kevin Porter over their last 30 games averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.7 turnovers actually, which is a big improvement for him. Shooting 49, 41, 87. Like, he was actually pretty good for them down the stretch, like, as much as we don't love Kevin Porter in these parts.
Yep.
I think that he's the swing guy for them. I would really like if I was them, I probably would not have done Gary Harris, even though they do need another shooter, and would have instead done some sort of point guard, like tried to find a point guard out there that makes sense. But like, who knows? Like, maybe they're able to still find that somewhere on the market, right? I would want another ball handler for sure, in the assumption that Micic is not going to be there. But I think that they need one more. I think they need one more guy, because Livingston probably goes. We think Micic probably goes. And then, is there anyone else on this roster that would be gone? No. So then, you have one more roster spot. I think that they have room for one more minimum. Don't quote me on that. I'm a little bit confused mechanically on just like, I know how they're doing it. I just don't know what they have left monetarily to be able to do some of this stuff. If I'm them, I want to take like kind of a flyer on like a real dude instead of just like a steady third, veteran guard at this point.
Wait, what did you say you thought they had left? Potentially?
They might have a minimum left.
Oh, okay. So I was just looking like,
is it like Malcolm Brogdon?
Malcolm Brogdon's here. Yeah. I mean, like
Chris Paul's not doing this.
Yeah, Corey Joseph isn't like necessarily what you're talking about. Like, he started playoff games for Orlando last year just like come in, and Dante Exum, that would be interesting to me. I like Dante. DeLon Wright, Monte Morris. Like, there's names here, varying degrees of what you're talking about.
It seems like the Sixers are going to sign Jared Butler back, but like, that would be a name that I would try for if I was them. And then look, there's obviously like potential on the trade market, right? They could try and find an answer there as well. They don't have a ton to trade because they've signed all of these guys now, obviously. But I mean, the AJ Green deal is still there, and I would not want to give up AJ Green in the slightest, but I'm just saying that I wonder if there is any way that you could figure out to go get a backup point guard involving AJ Green.
It's too bad Kuzma like just got worse when he got to Milwaukee and has zero trade value on that deal, because he's the one that does not make sense on this run. Okay, there we go.
Shout out the little gaming moments for the super chat.
You should just
get to this now.
Yeah.
Does Kuz have positive or negative value right now? Could the Bucks try to use him to wiggle around somehow? I mean, if they attached AJ Green to Kyle Kuzma in a deal, I wonder if they could get something. Like, is there any way that Charlotte would do AJ Green and Kuzma for Colin Sexton?
No.
Probably, right?
Well, I just they just drafted Knipple and McNeely. Like, do they need AJ Green also? I was thinking the other way. I was going to go look for a 3-year contract that a team might not love.
Sure.
That then they're trading out those 3 years for Kuzma's 2 years. I'll be honest, I haven't scanned it. So if somebody has an interesting name, throw it in the chat. But that's where my mind went, was, can you trade off Kuzma, take on another year since you're already invested in this thing, and take on 3 years of somebody else's quote unquote bad money, but for you, it's a good point guard number or point guard option. Backup.
So I think that they're a little too far away to do Simons. Like, I don't think they can add 6 million. But man, if they could add just a little bit, I'll have to look to see if the money's a little closer than what I think. But like, man, Simons would really work here right now, I feel like, don't you?
Yeah. So for Boston, because
Man, this is closer than I thought, actually, because Kuzma still gets 23 million this year. It's would you do something like that?
but
Simons for AJ Green and Kuzma?
But then Boston's taking on an extra year.
Boston is taking on an extra year, but they're reducing their cap imprint by 2.3 million this year and splitting money. But you're right. You probably don't do this because of that. I like AJ Green with Boston because the shooting, though, is like, is it valuable to be able to do the shooting?
And then could they then move Hauser in a separate deal and get them under the tax and feel like you replaced him with the lower number on Green? I was just looking for any contracts real quick here that.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a great option, to be completely honest with you. It's very hard to find the perfect point guard that fits into the Kuzma number and, tracks kind of across the board, right?
Call Phoenix, and he's not a point guard, but see if you can get Grayson Allen.
Call Phoenix and see if you can get Grayson Allen. Sure, but that doesn't. You need a ball handler, I think.
Yeah, no, that's there. The name is not here as I just look at people who have contracts going into this.
Someone asked about Marcus Sasser in the comments. That's a good name that I would be willing to try if I was Milwaukee, honestly.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, just as someone who's watched every second, he's not exactly what we're talking about. But he's obviously a smaller guard, and he plays with the ball in his hands. I don't think he creates a lot, but he does play with the ball in his hands. Alvarado's interesting.
Jose Alvarado's a good name, I think.
I like that.
Yeah, I think Jose Alvarado is actually a really good name.
That would just be like AJ Green straight up, right? That's not getting off Kuzma. That's just like, hey, New Orleans, do you want to wing floor space, or we'll take Alvarado off your backcourt?
Yeah, I would not love giving up him for giving up AJ Green for Alvarado personally, but
the money doesn't work.
Yeah, the money doesn't work otherwise. You have to would you do Andre Jackson for Alvarado? And but they moved a couple of picks here to get off of the Connaughton deal, so that doesn't totally work. I mean, there's no way that they can do Jaden Ivey, right?
No. I mean,
I think too much money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I this Detroit front office seems smart to me. I don't think they would do Kuzma for Ivy and something else.
Sure. Yeah. Kuzma a couple years ago when it was trending decently.
Yeah.
But no, I'm good there.
Yeah, I agree. There aren't a lot of great names, honestly. There are not a lot of great ball. Simons would be the name where if I could figure out a way, but I just don't think the Celtics are going to want to do that second option. I don't think they want to do that second year on Kuzma.
I think Milwaukee's best path is trying to hit one of these free agents that we mentioned earlier. It seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I think you're going to have to try and just hit a free agent and hope that it works. Or it's a minimum guy or a near minimum guy like Marcus Smart or Marcus Sasser or Jamal Shed. That's another name.
That's a good name. Yeah.
Try and pull him out of Toronto, but I would imagine they see him as their backup point guard moving forward.
Yeah.
It's somebody like that though.
It's a great name. If I'm Toronto, I don't know what they would have to do to entice me to do that, but it's a good name.
Yeah. But look, that's what it's going to take, I think, for Milwaukee. I think I would have this team as the 5th or 6th seed right now with Detroit, something like that.
That's where I'm at. I mean, I think those teams right there. I mean, Indiana that's tough. What happened with them? So, but yeah.
I mean, I would do this actually, Pat Spencer. If I was Milwaukee, I would try and get Pat Spencer. That's actually like a real name there to me. Moving to the other side now is Indiana, right? Or maybe Cole Anthony gets bought out, or know, whoever gets bought out, right? Sure. Like there are names that will get bought out, and they'll have options, right? But let's move to Indiana real quick. This is a huge loss for Indiana, if only because they now are on the clock over the next year to find a big.
Yeah. I
don't think that obviously they'd like to have a big for this year, right? They're probably have to bring back like a Thomas Bryant or they've tendered a qualifying offer to Isaiah Jackson, but something like that, right?
Yep.
An undervalued player. I'm of two minds on this for Indiana. I wish they had kept this thing together. I think Myles Turner is the perfect big to run within this scheme. I also have real concerns about how Myles Turner is going to age, and giving him a 4-year, $107 million deal. If you're not going to want to go super heavy into the tax, feels somewhat concerning to me, in all honesty. I don't know, like where do you stand on all of this with them? Because like I wish they had gone into the tax to keep the team together, because I loved watching this team and I truly like adored it. But I kind of get it on some level too.
So this is the ultimate test to me whenever people are like, why would you sign that guy? Why would you pay that guy that? Why would you do that? Okay, well, let's see. Because now we're seeing the other side of it. When you don't pay that guy, how do you replace him? Because you can't just not replace Myles Turner, right? they
have no center on the roster right now.
No center on the roster.
Something.
They have to, and to me, like, I don't really care what they do this year now. Like, they're not going to replace Myles Turner this year and be that level of competitive basketball team when you lose what I think is definitely your most important player and best player. And then Turner is tied for third with a couple names, right? One other name, whatever. Maybe by himself, depending on who you ask. So it's just an interesting case of, and if they aren't able to figure it out, this is why you may give somebody $25 million a year when they're going into their 30s, even if you don't love it, because replacing them isn't always that easy. Now, maybe they will find it, but to me, you said it. Start preparing. If I'm Indiana, I'm not like trying to lose games, but I'm playing Jarris Walker minutes. I'm playing Ben Shepherd minutes, Furphy, all of these guys. Find out what I have, and then position myself for 26-27 when Halliburton is back and healthy, and whatever that means. However I position myself to fill in this center roster, and whether that's I take some flyers on some guys this offseason, then I'm active on the trade market in season. I don't love that I'm going into next offseason, Sam, with the pressure of having to find one then. So the search starts now. I just don't know that is like realistic right now. So take flyers on a couple young guys, see if you can at least find your backup center. Because to your point, you don't have center 1, 2, or 3 than when you go small with Obi Toppin.
So here would be my next question to you. What do you think of Myles Turner, the player, right now? We've kind of avoided that, like during the Milwaukee side of it. Like, I thought Myles Turner was not quite as good on defense this year as what we've seen from him previously. We talked about that during the offseason preview for Indiana, right? Where we kind of assumed that they would keep him, but obviously they didn't. He obviously had a great offensive year, I think is the key. He had a very, very good offensive year. He averaged 15.6 points, shooting 48, 40, 77 from the field. Also, never has been like a monster rebounder, right?
Biggest negative for me.
for me, the bigger negative is actually like the passing and playmaking. Like I've never felt amazing about that. So really you're talking about a big where the skill set is reliant upon him continuing to be able to move his feet, be really good on defense on the interior, and knock down shots from the perimeter, right? And if you feel like one of those things is going to fall off, that feels relatively difficult to me in terms of like feeling good about guaranteeing him money.
Fair. I hadn't considered this as much because I guess when I see 29, I don't start thinking fall off yet. And I've considered what we saw in the playoffs more of like some sort of injury or whatever that we've never heard. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just like the wear and tear of the season and back-to-back deep playoff runs. So this is an interesting idea here. And what I will say is nobody probably has better intel on that than the Indiana Pacers, right?
Absolutely true.
If they saw a 10% drop this year from the year before and are anticipating based on their knowledge of everything that they know about their own players, another 10% drop off, to your point, when does he become only a stretch big that isn't a short roll passer? He can hit a short roll jump shot, isn't a lob threat. And then all of a sudden, where I would consider him a good defender, but not great or elite defender, he's not all defense level conversation defender, that starts to fall. So like, I hadn't considered this side of it, but it is interesting. If that's what Indiana saw, I understand it a little bit more. I still just say like, what is the replacement? But maybe with the Halliburton injury, they felt okay with that because they didn't need to immediately replace it because like they're still not competing for the title next year, even if Turner comes back without Halliburton. So take the year and figure it out.
In terms of names, like I've been trying to think of names that can
Sure.
work here for Indiana at the big position. Would you move Jarris Walker for Goga Batadze?
Not right now.
Not right now. Just not worth it. He has a year left after this one.
I just, Sam, I just wouldn't do it now. Like if Halliburton was healthy and Turner bounced, sure.
Sure.
I'm
For what it's worth, I don't do this either. Like I
Yeah,
want to be clear. I'm just like kind of, it would take real asset on top of Batadze for me to do it. I'm just like kind of trying to spitball different names that they could look at. Right.
I love Goga. Like, you know this. I love Goga. Like my thing is, I said this about Boston. My quote unquote silver lining for Indiana is now I have every reason to go. Like I will know this is a lost season for Indiana if they don't know 50 games into a healthy year of Jarris Walker, whether he's it or he's not. And maybe some fans already think they know. I don't know. But this is an opportunity. The silver lining is you can give these guys how many ever minutes you want and find out, because they're still going to be playing with Pascal and Nembhard and Nesmith. So it's still a quality roster in regards to that if he can't play and show you something, you got to find out now. Like that is the one thing you can do now without anything else hanging over your head. So I wouldn't trade him before the deadline when I had that information.
Other center names that could like theoretically be on the market. I mean, I think that the Hawks probably keep Okongwu would be my read.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, one of the Mavs bigs like Daniel Gafford would make a ton of sense in this scheme, right?
Yeah. So,
and he is cheaper moving forward than what Turner was projecting to be at this point, and 3 years younger.
That name's interesting.
Like it's going to be like 8 million cheaper for Gafford than it would be for Turner, but you also have to give up assets for him.
Yep.
I mean, once you get lower than that, like if I'm Detroit, I probably want to keep Isaiah Stewart, right?
Yeah. And I don't know that Stu's a great fit for this system offensively. Like when I think of Isaiah Stewart, I don't think like transition, run, heavy ball, like running ball screens with Tyrese, move the ball, pop, pop, pop. And listen, you won't find a bigger Isaiah Stewart fan, but no.
I mean, another name here would be like Wendell Carter. Like,
So
just,
like
again, cheap.
you got me thinking about Gafford, and I guess even Batadze. Like, I guess if I thought it was my center for the next 4 or 5, like truly not just a stopgap.
Yeah.
I still don't like it.
I mean, here's the name that I would chase if I was them.
Interesting.
I would probably try to do Yves Missi if I was them and find an answer. Like, they obviously just drafted Derek Queen. They just acquired Kevon Looney. I have real questions about Yves Missi's defense long term, but he's a great kid who, like, you hope will continue to learn. And my goodness, does he fit their scheme in terms of like playing up tempo and flying, right? Like getting up and down the court.
Yeah. So if you could call, if the Pelicans were out on Missi or whatever, and you could just like I don't know who on the Pacers roster, like, would you give up Ben Shepherd for that?
I probably would, because getting a big for 3 cheap years is incredibly important for Indiana, given what they seem to be doing here. But I understand if they have some hesitancy and reticence to do that, for sure.
So, I mean, I guess I've talked myself into now maybe my idea of letting these guys play and getting data isn't going to work. Like, you may just have to use one of them to go get this player like that. It may not be as feasible as what I just said.
And the reason I bring up Missi particularly is because new front office didn't draft him.
Drafted their own
just drafted their own big in Derek Queen, who's a center. He's not a 4 really. Like, he is a center. That feels like an interesting name. And the last name we do actually really have to bring up here is DeAndre Ayton, given that DeAndre Ayton quite literally
has signed
an offer sheet with the Indiana Pacers 4 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And was almost Myles Turner's replacement then.
Yeah.
I would imagine that could be on the cards here.
Sure.
And it will make me lose my mind defensively. It will completely change them in that regard. But maybe you can get him, feeling a little bit better about playing defense and playing hard consistently. And like, the big thing is the screening. Like, I think that Rick Carlisle would absolutely lose his mind coaching DeAndre Ayton, but
maybe he'll coach
regardless.
him up. Maybe he'll coach him up.
And look, here's the thing, because they did not pay Turner, I believe that they have space here, like, to be able to go and get a full mid-level.
I'd say they'd be the full non-tax, right?
They have the full non-tax mid-level.
Yeah. So
there are names here that can track, I think.
Yep.
But that's kind of the last of Indiana here. I mean, Indiana's in a good position, I would argue. But they have a year to find a center now.
Yeah.
And maybe it's DeAndre Ayton for 1 year on a stopgap, like it's a 2 for 28 and it's a team option on the second year or something like that. Like, that'd be good. Yeah, I brought up Mo Wagner earlier. Mo Wagner would be a good name for them, I think. Did I bring that up earlier on this, or did I bring that up on a call with somebody earlier?
That must have been on a phone call. You brought up every Orlando Magic center except for Mo Wagner.
Mo Wagner's a free agent. Like, he's coming off of an ACL injury, obviously, but Wagner is a good name for them at like 5 or 6 million, I think. Like, he fits what they do in a big way.
You don't think he's back in Orlando?
I'm kind of assuming, but they can pay him more than Orlando can now.
Okay.
I mean, look, like, the family doesn't need a lot of money with Franz doing as well as he is, but like, the same token, I don't know. And here's the other thing too. Like, Ron Burgundy 79 brings this up. I have no reason to doubt the Pacers front office right now. They've been genuinely great over the last 2 years, and they've built this team. Like, they've done an amazing job of building this team. I think that they are in a very strong position here to figure this out. And I do trust them to figure it out. They have all of their own picks. They have interesting young players in Ben Mathurin, Jarris Walker, Ben Shepherd. They can move those guys. They can move picks. They can get a real big by the time Halliburton comes back. But you don't need one right now. You can do the stopgap DeAndre Ayton if you need to, and then figure it out in a year.
Yeah. No, they have time. They don't have to do it right now. And I think I would prefer they didn't. Like, I almost wonder if waiting till the deadline is the time to do it. It would make me a little nervous to go into the summer without an answer, but I also don't want them forcing things. So they have time. Like, that's the nice thing is they're not having to pivot in 2 days, right? Like, they didn't get blindsided this morning and then have to have an answer by tonight, right? And then now you're overpaying for Nick Claxton or, Daniel Gafford or whoever. Not saying that those would be bad names. Like, I quite like Daniel Gafford, but you're not having to do that. And it's a great point. We've given the Pacers front office love, I feel like, for how they've
totally.
like, as much as we gave OKC love for everything they do, we've made the same points about Indiana's top-down approach and making smart decisions as well. So it's a fair point that there's no reason not to trust them to figure this thing out.
Yeah. And look, maybe Isaiah Jackson comes back and he's really valuable in some respect after his Achilles injury. They have options and they can afford to be patient. I think that the patience piece of this is the key, though. If something comes available, like if they find out that Yves Missy is just like out of favor in New Orleans for whatever reason, and to me, there's like every reason to think that every action at this point that the Pelicans front office has made, saying that they're keeping Zion, drafting Derek Queen and trading like a real asset for him, signing Kevon Looney, right? Like, all of this says that they might not be as in on him is what you would think. If that's a player that I could go get for a reasonable price tag, I would do it. Right. Yep. Like that. But it's, you can take your time over the next year and pick your spot.
Yep.
I think is the key if you're Indiana.
Sure. They definitely have time. Yep.
Okay. Let's hit a quick ad.
Okay.
Before we move to the rest of the offseason that happened today. Shout out to our friends over at Trade Coffee. Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling kids back and forth to activities, or tackling an endless to-do list, your morning sets the tone for it all. That's why it should start with the perfect cup of coffee, crafted just for you. Enter Trade Coffee. Trade is the #1 U.S. coffee destination, bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Trade's experts have taste-tested thousands of coffees to curate over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee, you know your favorites, they'll handpick the perfect coffee just for you, even if it's cold brew for those hot summer days. Just take their quiz, and in under a minute, they're going to match you with your perfect coffee. If your first bag isn't quite right, Trade will replace it for free until they nail it. Trade's prices are on par with grocery store brands, but the quality is next level. Plus, you're supporting local roasters. It's a huge win across the ecosystem. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/game. That's drinktrade.com/game. Drink, DRINK, trade, TRADE.com/game, GAME, for 50% off your 1-month trial. Drinktrade.com/game. Okay. Bryce, I'll ask you, I'll give you the floor. What do you most want to talk about that has occurred here? You're muted.
Gosh, dang it. I always do that. I thought we had another ad, so I was chilling. Can we do the SGA and just get it done?
Sure. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander signed a 4-year, $285 million Supermax. Absolutely the right decision. And look, it's the start of Oklahoma City's impending cap issues that will occur, as will occur for every single team league-wide that has superstars. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will be making $79 million in 2030, 2031, and he will be worth every penny.
That's so much money.
He's going to be worth every single penny at that time when the cap will be at $210 million.
It's crazy. I love it. Good for Shea. I mean, this was one of those, like, they're what's the negotiation, right? He's the MVP of the league. He's the finals MVP. Yep. Your team just won the title. He's the center of all of that. Like, there's no questions about it. There's no debating it. It's a no-brainer. Good for him. Good for the league. I love that players are making this much money. I do, like, it's great. Good. It means the league is in a good spot. It's really hard numbers to wrap your head around, but he deserves it. He's earned it. This is what the cap situation is. It is what it is. Good for him.
I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Jaren Jackson Jr. was injured in a basketball run off-site and sustained a turf toe injury in his right foot, which upon expert evaluation was determined to require a procedure to repair. An update on the timeline will be provided following the procedure, but he is now going to he's going to miss some time immediately after signing that deal. Deal's not signed, I don't think.
I say hopefully the ink has dried on that one.
I don't think it is, because they can't even sign it yet, because they haven't gotten rid of Cole Anthony.
Yeah.
It's not going to matter. They're going to do it, because of course they're going to do it. But yeah, wild, isn't it?
It's crazy. Injuries suck. I wish we could turn those sliders off, or at least way down.
Yeah, agree. Completely agree. That's wild. That's completely wild to me. Oh, it's wild that it happened in the in-between window where, like, in theory they could, like, get out of it if they want to. Right. They're not going to, because it's Sharon. Like, they built their team around him. But, like, I wonder if they put, like, some sort of, like, provision in it now. Yeah. Honestly. Sure. Like, you have 5 days. you have 5 days to do this.
It's
just stop playing a random run for 5 days.
But in some ways, I appreciate it. Like, he's just out hooping because he wants to play basketball. Like, I'm cool with it. But
I do too. But if he tore his ACL as opposed to just like turf toe,
I know $200 million. I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
I truly understand, while also appreciating the fact that Jaren Jackson Jr. was just out hooping. So,
yeah. And by the way, for the Memphis Grizzlies, seems like Jaren is going to miss pretty damn close to the start of the year, right? If not a little bit of time here at the start of the year. Zach Edey already out for the start of the year for the first month at least. Santi Aldama, 3 years, $53 million. Starting 4-man for the Memphis Grizzlies on opening night now. Maybe with Brandon Clark.
J-Huff.
Maybe with J-Huff. Like,
we went from J-Huff's Summer League highlight reel last year at Vegas to starting Memphis Grizzlies. He's going to be sitting front row of Grizzlies Summer League games this year because he's their starting center in 25-26. Speaking of center-type players, guess who the Cavs finally acquired after we talked about it for 18 months? Larry Nance Jr. This is amazing.
Larry Nance Jr. Thank you. Such a good signing for Cleveland. I think Cleveland has done an amazing job this offseason. They are very clearly the pick to come out of the East, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, all due respect to the Knicks, all due respect to Atlanta and Orlando. And look, maybe this is just me loving the 3 guys that they brought in, like, unconditionally.
You're right. I am, like, in love with this Hawks team right now, but it would be crazy for me to say they're their favorites. Like, I'm just kind of in love with what they're doing and building there, but you're right. It is Cleveland. So carry on.
The Cleveland Cavaliers have acquired Lonzo Ball for Isaac Okoro. A great deal, right? They have signed Sam Merrill to a, 3-year, $38 or so million deal.
4-year, right?
4-year. I'm sorry. It's 4. You're absolutely right. It's 4. And they've signed Larry Nance to a 1-year minimum deal. And Larry Nance is the perfect big for this team. You cannot find a perfect big. You cannot find a more perfect big for them. He can play a little bit of the 4. He can play a little bit of the 5. He is able to play with both Evan Mobley and he's able to play with Jared Allen. He is somebody who is flexible in terms of role. He is really smart. He moves the ball incredibly quickly. This is a home run signing. Now, the issue that I will say is that Larry Nance occasionally deals with injuries. Lonzo Ball can deal with injuries, right? But when Larry Nance is on the court, he is an impactful player for teams. Every single time he's on the court, he's an incredibly valuable player for basketball teams.
Yeah, no, we've been talking about this for a while, that this has been my biggest issue with Cleveland, is not just getting, I guess you would call it a third big, right? Because Jared Allen's your starting center, Mobley's your backup center. I think every team needs to fill their third center spot in some capacity, right? We'll talk about one. I didn't like how much money a team gave their third center because I thought it was too much. But in Larry Nance here at this number to be the third center on the Cavs makes a ton of sense. I really like Sam Merrill. If people want to see it, I broke it down because I thought he was an option for Detroit. Like the way this offseason has played out for Detroit, they really could have used him. But Cleveland was smart and brought him back before any of that could happen. I have a whole video breakdown on him on the Substack. You can go check it out, including the defensive end. And then if healthy, Lonzo Ball, I love Ty Jerome, Sam. I love Ty Jerome. But in a playoff setting on this Cavaliers team, I think Lonzo Ball probably makes more sense than Ty Jerome. And we saw that play out last year in the playoffs on this Cavs team, because Lonzo is better playing off of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell in a playoff setting if healthy. Now, if somebody wants to be like, he's never healthy, fine. I'll hear that out. But if they can keep him healthy and they can limit his minutes, right? I feel like they have the depth to do that during the regular season with a Craig Porter Jr. So you can limit his minutes in the regular season, almost do what the Thunder did with Alex Caruso.
Alex Caruso, who, by the way, on Alex Caruso,
didn't get traded for a draft pick either. Good job, Chicago.
Literally, Chicago gearing up potentially the Eastern Conference and Western Conference, title teams in back-to-back years with perfect role players for their team.
Here's what
I adore it
for Chicago is like the one positive thing we've said on this podcast in 18 months about them is they gave Lonzo a good contract and then they immediately trade it 12 months later. Amazing work.
Oh, it wasn't even 12 months. Like that extension just happened.
Oh no. Yeah. So it was 6 months.
Yeah. So yeah, man, it is, it's something. That's for sure. Shout out the Chicago Bulls, man. They, hey, the good thing for them is that the Giddey number probably goes down by the day because Brooklyn does not have space right now. They can obviously get space though, if they want to. So I don't know that Chicago's totally out of the woods there, but yeah, I love what Cleveland has done. Like you said, they're going to be able to play Lonzo Ball 15 to 20 minutes a night. The other sneaky thing that Cleveland did, by the way, was they orchestrated the drop from Tyrese Proctor too. By letting agents know ahead of the draft that they were rostering their player at 49, they were able to get to a circumstance where whoever fell into the second round, Proctor was on the board for a couple teams at the bottom of the first round. Because of the extra night between the draft, Proctor's representation was able to kind of go to work and be like, all right, who's rostering their player? Cavs were at 49. They were able to orchestrate the drop down to 49.
Yeah.
I had Proctor at 35 on my board. I'm not sitting here saying that he's a guy that's going to be able to eat into a real rotation role from day one in Cleveland, but he might be able to play 500 minutes for them next year.
Yeah.
And just make it so Lonzo Ball doesn't have to put 500 more minutes on his body over the course of the entire season, right? And then be a little bit less able to play in the playoffs at the end of the day. Even just small stuff like that. I love everything Cleveland has done on the margins this summer, from the Larry Nance deal, which is a perfect third big for them, to retaining Sam Merrill over Ty Jerome. I think that was the right choice. To even just this Lonzo for Isaac Okoro deal, in the smallest move, which was number 49 overall with Tyrese Proctor. I think that they absolutely have nailed this offseason. Like there's, and shout out to Dan Gilbert for being willing to pay. Like this team is going to be expensive. It's going to be wild. It's going to be really aggressive. But man, if he's willing to pay it and he's willing to throw out 90 million in a tax payment, which is what it's currently projected at right now, with them having 15 guys or 14 guys on the roster so they can be done if they want to. An absolute home run to me for Cleveland this summer.
And this is what the business you should do whenever you're a real title contender. And they absolutely are. And we talked about this the other day with the LeBron stuff. Why make a move for LeBron whenever you're probably already, if you're not the favorite, you're one of the favorites in the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
So run it back. Thought they made some, like you said, some nice moves here. And yeah, they would probably be my pick right now, to be honest with you, Sam.
They would be my pick in the East for sure right now. I feel great about where they're at. We'll see if the Knicks hire like a really good coach.
Sure.
Maybe we'll see, but I would pick Cleveland right now pretty comfortably.
They did improve their front court at least.
Yep. That is true. They did improve their front court, the front court depth, which was necessary. They needed one more body.
I was talking about the Knicks with Yabusele.
Well, yeah, we can move to the Knicks now if we want to. Yabusele gets the taxpayer mid-level. 2 years, what is it, like 11.7? Something like that is the full number. Sure. Great deal. This is exactly what the Knicks needed as well. They needed a guy who could come in and eat minutes and be a useful offensive player. And I really like their depth across the front court now between being able to throw out lineups of, okay, we have Towns at the 5, we have OG at the 4. Okay, we can throw out Mitchell Robinson and Towns lineups together. We can throw out Yabusele and Mitchell Robinson lineups together. Like we can really, get creative here in how we utilize our roster construction in New York now.
I agree. I like this signing. I thought Yabusele was in a season that was just a disaster for Philly, obviously, right? Yabusele was a bright spot in the way that he played coming over, and it was interesting to see where he was going to end up. I think this was a really nice signing for the Knicks. What do you think they get from Jordan Clarkson? Maybe you guys talked about that last night. Like, do we like that? What did GMAC think? I haven't listened yet.
Yeah, we thought that Clarkson made sense for them as like an upgrade on the campaign role.
Yep. I would agree.
That's what it feels like to me. Like Jordan Clarkson come in and knock down shots and play off the ball. They have enough guys that can play on the ball. Go get another guy who can play off the ball.
Sure. Yep. I like it.
Yeah. And can occasionally handle. He can occasionally handle as like a combo guard. So I wouldn't say that it's, they could use one more ball handler unless Kolek is ready. But even if Kolek's ready, like they might go, look, now that Tibbs is gone, we can talk about the depth. And this was GMAC's joke yesterday, right? But there's a chance they can go 10 deep next year. Like between Brunson, Towns, Anunoby, Bridges, Hart, then you've got Mitch and Yabusele and Deuce, all three of whom will definitely play. And then you've got Clarkson and Kolek. Like you might be able to make this work, I think.
Yeah. And speaking to the depth, like Hook Porty is now like your true third center. Like Yabusele can moonlight if you really want to go small. Like if you're like not in a playoff situation necessarily, but like if you're in a regular season and Mitch Robb misses a couple weeks or whatever, like the front court is like Yabusele seemed like the missing piece as a true, like can actually play the 4 and hold up physically. And yeah, I think Clarkson is an upgrade over those minutes we saw there. Kolek being ready to play backup point guard minutes would be huge for this team. Like if he could really do it.
I will say like Yabusele, given that this is the signing, I would hope that they go offensive minded coach.
Sure. Yeah.
Like Yabusele is like a somewhat complicated player to fit into. And obviously like it matters way more that they have Towns and Brunson and everybody like that, right? Like those guys matter so much more than Yabusele, but like their moves over the last year, basically since they made the Bridges deal and took this move into overdrive to try and compete at the top of the East, they've been offensive moves. And if you're going to do these moves, you need to have a plan for how to be successful.
Sure.
So I would hope that they go offensive personally with the coach, be it Mike Inori or somebody. Maybe Mike Brown has like some more, modern offensive ideals than what he had in Cleveland now that he's coached in Sacramento, something like that.
I just hope they hire one soon so we can talk about it.
Yeah, I would agree. Hire a coach. Shout out GMAC, hire a coach. The other team we have to talk about here, I think, is Denver.
Yeah. Yep.
Denver has been on fire. This, to me, what they've done now, I do think actually pushes them a little bit ahead of Houston for me.
Okay.
Potentially in the West. It's close. Like it's not like a lock or anything. I think that those two teams are the second and third seeds for sure right now. But Denver going out and getting Cam Johnson for Michael Porter Jr. Great deal. We talked about it yesterday. Bruce Brown on a minimum. Tim Hardaway Jr. on a minimum. What have we talked about for years? Denver's depth.
Yep.
They've been missing depth for now the last 2 years since they won the title. They have that depth now. Tim Hardaway Jr., like, you can speak to this better than I can because you had to watch every game he played last year. Yeah, like, there are maddening moments, but he is definitely a guy where if he's playing 15 to 18 minutes a night, you're pretty ecstatic with what he can bring you.
Yeah, I mean, he started on the 6th seed or whatever they were in the East last year, 5 seed. I don't remember. Whatever they were.
Yeah.
The defense is he'll take a charge every once in a while to get you excited about that. And there are stretches where it's like, hey, maybe not your shot, my guy. But there are also stretches where he knocks down shots. And if nothing else, he has real gravity. Like, he is a real volume 3-point shooter and floor spacer. And that was in a starting role for Detroit. In Denver, all he has to do is come off the bench and do a little bit of that and knock down some shots. And then in the playoffs, it gets limited. He's going to help them in the regular season for sure.
He is definitely going to eat innings in the regular season.
Yep.
Like he's going to play, he's going to be able to play 1,000 minutes for sure and give them like 1,000 valuable minutes.
Yeah. I mean, they added 3 rotation players in exchange for, I don't want to say nothing, but they literally just added 3 rotation players. Like, their
Correct.
bench, they added 3 bench guys that are like, hey, if this guy plays 15 to 20 minutes, I'm okay with that. They're not coming in and playing 30 minutes a night between Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Valančiūnas.
Well, and here's the other thing too. The other deal that they made today is Jonas Valančiūnas for Dario Saric.
Yeah.
Who is a player that we have talked about extensively. We realized within 3 games of him playing this year that he was washed like very quickly. It felt quite bad that was the case. And man, Jonas is probably their best backup center since the Mason Plumlee days, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like it's been a while since Denver has had a backup center who can like really, really play. Like they haven't had a backup center this good basically since 2020, I would argue. In Valančiūnas, like if you think he still can't play, like you are just wrong, frankly. He is a fantastic backup center. Averaged 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists last year. Will occasionally step out and knock down a 3. He is a like foul magnet, I feel like. Like he just is able to, kind of get to the post and shoot free throws. He doesn't take a ton of free throw attempts because he averages like 20 minutes a game or whatever. But like he is able to get to the spot on the block because he's so strong and physical. Yes, there are real defensive concerns. There are undeniably defensive concerns here. But man, this is a home run. And then they have Deron Holmes as well as an option. We'll see what he looks like coming off the Achilles. Like this is a deep team that didn't really experience any sort of drop off by trading Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson. So they have the flexibility to go out and get 3 real rotation players. It is crazy how good this team just got in a hurry and solved their real issues.
Yeah, I agree, Sam. I mean, Deron Holmes II also, we'll see him at Summer League, I assume, here in a week or so. And you have him, Valančiūnas, Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., and then and Peyton Watson. Like that is 5 guys again in the regular season at least. We'll see how many.
Is Peyton Watson like playing every night for them now? I'm like not convinced.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to work out that rotation, right? And we saw what, Bruce Brown hasn't been great since he left Denver, but he was really good the last time he was there. And, I haven't even mentioned Julian Schroeder, so like it is a team that has depth now. And that is one of the biggest questions with this team. And Valančiūnas does have real defensive issues, but you know what? They're kind of the same as Jokic. So you can just build the defense around the same defensive issues, right? Like you just know for 48 minutes at center, you're going to have these, but I think with where they're at and what they had to work with, I know they had to give up a that pick probably is going to look really good to the Nets in, depending on how long Jokic plays, which probably isn't long enough to, that pick. But man, it's hard to go against what they've done so far.
So their backup unit, kind of like you laid out, is I would guess that they continue to start Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, probably Cam Johnson with Jokic, right? Like that feels pretty set in stone.
Well, I would agree.
And then you have Tim Hardaway and Bruce Brown as like your 6th and 7th men. You have Jonas as your backup big who will play 13 to 15 to 18 minutes a night, depending on the situation. So that's 8 right there. You're now officially 8 deep already, which is something this team has not been over the last couple of years. And you're 8 deep with like guys who can really play minutes, like really, really play minutes. Like Bruce Brown, borderline starter in the NBA. Tim Hardaway Jr., like you said, was just the starter on the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, right? And then you do have Peyton Watson as like your 9th man. You have
Deron Holmes as your 10th man coming off, again, depending on what
Julian Schroeder is your 11th man now. Like this fits. Like this now makes sense to me. Like Julian Schroeder played 10 minutes a game for them in the Oklahoma City series.
We were talking about this time last year. We were talking about Julian Schroeder being the Christian Brown replacement, right? Like like we've said this multiple times now. The issue with KCP leaving wasn't that Christian Brown couldn't replace KCP. I think Christian Brown was probably a better player than KCP last season. It was that who was going to replace Christian Brown's role. And Russ did everything Russ could, like that ended up working out okay. But now you have multiple guys. And so I think
and multiple options, by the way, options. Too.
Yeah. And it could, maybe it is Schroeder now, but it doesn't have to be if he's not up for it. Like if it doesn't hit, or it could be, hey, we need some more floor spacing tonight. So we're going to go with Schroeder and we're going to go smaller, and Peyton Watson, you're not going to play. Or we want to play bigger. And so we go with, whatever. So when's the last time they had the optionality where we could talk about lineup construction with this team, right? Like when was that a conversation with the Nuggets?
Like never.
Ever.
Truly, like it just hasn't been since they won their title.
Yeah. Yep.
So Denver has cooked this summer. And just for people who, question how good these players still are at this point, Tim Hardaway Jr. averaged 11 points per game, shooting 41, 37, 86 last year, started 77 games for the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. Was not great in the playoffs, but again, like he's now in a much lower leverage role than what he has been previously. Bruce Brown, 8 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists per game, playing for the Toronto Raptors and New Orleans Pelicans. But the big thing is the previous year after he signed that massive, he's just been moving around because he's been like a walking trade exception essentially for teams now for the last 2 years. He was the salary ballast to get the Pascal Siakam deal done. And then he was the salary ballast to get the Brandon Ingram deal done in New Orleans. Right. So look, that's the life you lead whenever you sign a massive short-term deal like Bruce Brown got coming off of the title in Denver, where he got paid, I think 2 years, $45 million.
45.
And it's a great deal for him. And he now is set for life, which is great for him. And, you're in a really positive position now. He's made $60 million over the course of his career. And now he gets to go back to Denver on the minimum and be happy.
Here's the thing, Sam. I would agree with people if we were like, hey, they signed Tim Hardaway Jr. to come be the starting 2 guard in Denver. And he did it for Detroit last year. So that means it's going to be a workout for Denver. That's not what we're saying, right? Like we're saying, hey, on a team that was decent last year in the East, he started and filled in admirably. We're going to take that role and we're actually going to diminish it we're going to cut it in half. Not only is he not going to start, he's probably going to play half the minutes. And all he has to do is knock down open shots off the best creator of open shots in the league. Cade Cunningham's pretty good at it. He's not Nikola Jokic. So, that's all I'm saying. Bruce Brown, if he was coming in to start instead of Michael Porter Jr., that would be an issue. All we're saying is half of that role, you're going to come in and you're going to play off Nikola Jokic, which you did at an extremely high level already in your career. That's why I think it's a really good offseason so far for the Nuggets.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Just genuinely could not agree more with any of that. Let's go to the team that they traded Dario Saric to. So Valančiūnas for Dario is one of those deals where when I looked at it, I was like, what in the world is happening here? I don't understand. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And then you figure out that in order to fully be able to do the Schroeder deal, they did probably need to do this, or they needed to sign and trade somebody over to Detroit. I would want the backup. And look, they just drafted Maxime Reynaud. Maybe they're expecting that Maxime can come in and play real minutes. And they were just like, all right, neither Valančiūnas nor Saric are going to be here next year. So let's just do this. They also went out and they signed Drew Eubanks as well to be able to stem the tide if Reynaud isn't ready. Right. But man, what a strange deal to not even get anything back from Denver in that deal. Cause Dario is done at this point.
Yeah.
And Jonas is not done. Even remotely close.
Here's what's weird to me is they did it so they could sign another backcourt player, Sam. That's what's interesting to me. We've already talked about, okay, you have Levine and you have Monk and you have Devin Carter and you have Keon Ellis. Well, let's also add Dennis Schroeder to the mix with those 4 guys.
And look, here's the other thing about it. Dennis isn't exactly a pass first point guard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He can pass. I don't want to sit here and say that he can't, move the ball around the court and make plays, but he does dribble the ball.
That's why he was so good in Detroit, to be honest, was they needed somebody to dribble the ball. And I want to be clear.
Yeah.
I don't care what the stats say. I watched every second of it. I will be a little bit, I don't know, whatever here. Dennis Schroeder was very good for Detroit down the stretch in the playoffs last year. And I know you can look at the field goal percentages. I'm just, for what they needed, he came in and provided it. But it was a lot of on the ball dribbling. He's a quality defender. There's not a whole lot of versatility with the matchups he can take because of his size. The shooting definitely can be a concern. That's an adventure sometimes, especially off the catch. But he's this isn't a Dennis Schroeder thing to me, Sam. It's a Sacramento Kings adding another on-ball guard thing and not moving off of one of the other ones. And maybe that's the next thing. Maybe they're going to trade Devin Carter for some sort of value. I mean,
imagine signing Dennis Schroeder to get rid of Devin Carter, though.
So
And again, new front office, they aren't attached to this player. You just
Yeah.
never know how they feel, right?
I mean, and like they should definitely not trade Keon Ellis, but whatever. Like, I mean, whenever
yeah,
it was,
and doing the cheap Keon Ellis year, like, what are you doing?
yeah, like when it
Like,
was
he's now an unrestricted free agent. Keon Ellis is
good.
Keon Ellis one of the 5 or 6 like most valuable free agents next summer now?
I mean, if he knocks down shots and the way he plays defense, I feel like that's something the NBA really values.
Like, given that we're assuming a lot of these guys are going to get taken off the board, like Trae Young might get taken off the board with an extension. Luka Doncic might get taken off the board with an extension.
Not if they don't
Damian
find a
Lillard might
center
sign
he won't.
somewhere, right? Like,
Sorry.
like there's a chance Keon Ellis is like one of the most valuable guys, and you just didn't use his restricted free agency rights by declining this year's team option and signing him to a like longer term extension where I'm sure he'd have been ecstatic to get more money up front than the $2 million he'll make this year. If I'm Keon Ellis and his reps, I'm like, screw these guys. I'm leaving in a year.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just hoping, maybe I'm salty because I wanted the sign and trade to go through, because then my favorite player in the NBA would be playing for the Pistons. But because the report there for a while was like the Malik Monk stuff. And I'm like, I kept telling people I'm not getting my hopes up, but
yeah,
I don't know. It
Doesn't
just
seem like it's going to be Malik Monk.
Yeah, does not. But yeah, interesting process here.
It's just a very bizarre, strange set of decisions to me. I don't totally get it. I don't really understand what their tactics are here. And then like they just let Laravia walk. Like, I mean, they were able to offer him damn near the same amount of money as what the Lakers were, like slightly less, but not much less.
Yeah, because what they could have offered 5-1, 5-2, something like that, and Laravia
Yeah, I think it's
got
like 5.
6.
Yeah, 211 versus 212 is
Yeah.
what it was. So like, look, the Lakers outbid, but like, I don't know. I kind of was under the impression Jake Laravia was like happy in Sacramento too. So I don't know, man. It's this is a disaster situation in Sacramento. And you now have Dennis Schroeder, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, all on-ball players, with Devin Carter, who's like a smaller guard, who's like a two-way guard, but a smaller guard. Keon Ellis is really good. And then you have Sabonis and Keegan Murray. And that's like your entirety of your playable guys. Like, I think I now might have Sacramento, or I might have New Orleans ahead of them right now.
You have no wings forwards like outside of Keegan and DeMar. Like I know, like,
yeah,
and only one of those guys really defends. So
yeah, and they have to figure out what they're doing with the Keegan extension now too, right? Like you have to pay him.
Yeah, amazing.
So yeah, I don't know what Sacramento's doing. It feels messy. It feels not great so far, but we'll see if they can get something together here. The other team that Bryce brought up there is the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
The Detroit Pistons did not do a Malik Monk sign and trade or anything. It seems like, who knows, right? But it seems like that's not going to be the option. Instead, they have signed Duncan Robinson to a 3-year, $48 million deal with some non-guarantees across the board somewhere. I think that David Aldridge said non-guarantee year 2 and 3. I think that your guy Omari said
partial
and non,
and
partial and non. So
I text Omari. I said, "Hey, what's up?" And it was like he stood by his reporting that non-guarantee in year 3. He didn't have a number for the partial in year 2, so like that could be like maybe it's so low that it's essentially a non-guarantee. If it's only a couple million, or I am not reporting. Like, to be clear, no number was spoken between me and Omari. But if it's only a few million, well, you feel pretty easy getting off of that money if you need to next year. And it may be 7.5, it may be 10. I don't know. So we'll need clarification on that. But it's not as, I don't want to know. It's not as bad as it looked whenever the number came out because of not being fully guaranteed across the board.
Yeah, no, I think that's true.
It was signed and trade, by the way. So Simone Fontecchio is going to the Miami Heat in the deal.
That is true. Home run for Detroit to me. I really like Duncan. Duncan is also way underrated in terms of being able to like run ball screens and be like a second side pick and roll playmaker occasionally, but more than anything, he's here for the shooting, and he's a real upgrade on Tim Hardaway to me.
So it's interesting. I do feel like the Pistons offseason probably like immediately got derailed and went to a new plan with all of this Malik Beasley stuff. And I feel like, so I put out a tweet. I said, would you rather have Jaden Ivey, Karis LeVert, and Duncan Robinson, or Dennis Schroeder, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Malik Beasley? And people are like, well, that's not fair. That, of course, Jaden Ivey. My only point is exchanging that trio, and you essentially have the same exact team that Detroit ended last year with and into the playoffs. And my only point is, did they get better then? Are they better going into the season than they were at the end of last season with Jaden? Because that matters in this equation when you're talking about not bringing back any of that trio, Sam. Because they probably don't go get Dennis Schroeder if Jaden Ivey doesn't break his leg. And so are they better? And then my answer is yes, that trio is better. It's better defensively. Karis LeVert is the best defender of those six, in my opinion. And agreed, right? He's better than Schroeder simply because of versatility, I think.
Bigger. Yeah.
And Duncan Robinson,
none of them are like awesome defenders.
No. I'm definitely not saying that. And then Duncan Robinson, like everybody was worried about Beasley's volume and 3-point shooting, rightfully so. How many options? Who has a better career track record of replacing that than Duncan Robinson? You know what I mean? He's awful defensively. So was Beasley. So, this isn't a home run off season for Trajan. I will not make that, but I think it's fine. It's okay. If the offseason plan was to go with the youth, then this is fine. If people don't like that, I understand it. But if this was the plan, I think he's executed that plan fine. And it hasn't taken big, long contracts. Ultimately, this offseason was going to be two things. Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey extensions. What do those numbers come down to? And then are you going to take a big swing, or are you going to essentially run it back and see what the youth does in terms of development? We have one of those answers.
And this is like a pseudo run back with different names.
Correct.
Kind of.
And I think, Sam, I don't know this. Like literally, guys, whenever I tell you I don't talk to anybody within the Detroit Pistons organization. Like that's God's honest truth. I think they probably wanted to run it back with Malik Beasley and like maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. Maybe I don't know about Hardaway Jr. and Schroeder, but I think they kind of did. Like, it's not their fault that you can't sign Malik Beasley right now, right? Like, I know you technically can, but like that thing is just getting weirder. So I thought they pivoted and it's been fine.
So here's my big thing on this. And this is a real question here from somebody. Like, do you think the Pistons need one more shooter? Right. I mean, Karis LeVert has hit 36% from three over the last 3 years on over 900 attempts from three. I think he's a little bit better as a shooter than what people think now.
Real quick, because I just did the Karis video breakdown for the Substack. He's also like really good on unguarded catch and shoot and pretty good from the corner. Like his numbers get brought down by taking guarded catch and shoot. Like there's a 20% difference in those two numbers for him. Now, like there's something within that, but like if you believe in Cade and what you really just need is guys to knock down open shots, he knocks down unguarded catch and shoot at a very good rate, Sam.
Yeah, so I think that this is a really good position that the other Detroit Pistons are in. Go ahead.
Is what you believe about Jaden Ivey. Like, do you think he's a 40%? He's not a 40%. Do you think he's at least 38%? Because he was 40% when he broke his leg last year from three. And I think that's what people aren't taking into account.
Yeah. I think he can shoot off the catch. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he a 33% 3-point shooter, or is he 37 and 41% off the catch? Because if he's that, this is also less of a concern, right? So, like, one more shooter would obviously be great. Like, I think the bigger hole is somewhere else. I think the bigger hole is at the 4 position. Like they need some forward help.
So here's my question there. Do you see minutes with Asar at the 4?
I think you have to.
It's just a reality. Like, and you're going to get minutes with Tobias Harris at the 4.
Yep.
Maybe they play some Isaiah Stewart minutes at the 4 occasionally.
Yeah.
They could.
They could.
You
I
have
think
Sar
it's a Sar.
Thompson potentially, and I think Ron Holland is
So
capable of doing that as well.
It's funny. I always consider Sar bigger than Ron just because like the way they play, and it's not the case like measurements wise. But yeah, if Ron comes back from year 1 to year 2, is put on 15 pounds, like those guys have the size, like they have the athleticism and the length to do it. Do they have like the physicality to do it? I don't know. Bobby Klintman is a name people like, a second round pick last year. Like, I don't know if he's ready for like true backup 4-man, The other thing is like Chaz Lanier was a second round pick this year at 37. Like, can he come in and just knock down shots? Right. So I think,
I mean, look, like who do you go get at the 4 as well is the other question, right? Like, do you, Al Horford, it seems like is not, considering the Pistons, right? He's kind of got a number of different teams that he's looking at. Trey Lyles is a name we've talked about. Like, I wouldn't mind Trey Lyles there. I think that's a name that
one
really
will
tracks.
make me so mad because Pistons fans hated him the first time he was in Detroit, and I always kind of tried to defend him a little bit. And now it's funny that like he's the name that people are rounding back to. I love it.
I think it's a name that makes sense.
I think it is absolutely a name that makes sense. Yeah, I think it'd be a really nice fit. So yeah, that would be fine.
Can I give you one more name that if I was them, I would take a flyer on?
Sure.
I would really consider taking a flyer on Jabari Walker if I was them.
Sure.
Jabari Walker did not get tendered his qualifying offer, so he is an unrestricted free agent. I've always had kind of a soft spot for Jabari Walker as like a 4-man who can like rebound the ball a little bit and potentially shoot it at some point, and he's active athletically. I would try, if I was a team out there and I needed a 4, I would really give a chance to Jabari Walker as like a upside swing rotational 4.
Sure. I'm all about it.
So that would be, that's actually the name that I would like really try and do if I was them.
I think Pistons fans are worried because like they feel like the Magic passed them, the Hawks passed them, like that stuff. And I get it. The Magic were always ahead of them. They just dealt with a plethora of injuries last year. Yeah. And honestly, the Hawks did too with Jalen Johnson. So I think it's fine because this is what I wanted them to do anyway, Sam. I didn't want to trade anybody till the deadline. I wanted to see these young guys for another 50 games. So I'm okay with it. I think a lot of fans are not.
Okay. Next team, the Raptors, Jakob Poeltl, 4/104 extension, not like starting next year. It is, now a 5-year deal worth like 123 million or so. And then Sandro Mamukelashvili, 2 years, 5.5 million. Let's start with Poeltl. Obviously, it's the bigger deal. This is a large deal and a large number for me. It's just very long. It's a very long contract. Like, people will look at this and they will compare it to the Myles Turner deal. Jakob Poeltl is like 2/3 of a year older than Myles Turner. And because it's a deal that starts not this year, but next year, it extends an extra year beyond it. I am a little bit concerned about how that one is going to age, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. When you first brought this up, I was a little like, no, I feel like that number's okay but like you said, then whenever you look at how long it extends out, it's not quite as enticing. What was the actual? So the spot track numbers don't track. Oh, this was a 3-year, 84.5. What did you say?
So people are saying 4 years. Oh no, he's adding 3. This isn't bad. Scotto is saying he's averaging 3. Sham said it's a 4-year extension.
No, he's average. No, it's so the reporting is weird. It's 384.5.
Yeah, this is fine then. This is totally fine then. Okay, I went with what Sham said. Sham's, I need to remember, is always going to give the like rosiest color lens for the agent here.
Because they're why are they adding the 19.5 that was already on the books for 26-27? Or does Spot Track have it wrong?
I think Spot Track has it wrong. Poetl only has 1 year left.
Interesting.
Right? I believe Poetl only has 1 year left on his deal.
So Spot Track,
he picked up the 19.5 player option, and then it's a 384 extension. That's what this is.
So Spot Track has 26-27 on the books again for 19.5, and then the extension kicks in, going to 29.30.
Maybe it is. I think you actually are right now that I'm looking at this. I think you're right that it's a player option for 26-27. The deal starts after next year. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, this is we were right. We're still concerned on how long this is. It's 5 years.
The player option is for, that's why they reported it that way. The player option was for 26-27. He took that, whatever. And then they added 3 years at 84.5 onto that. Yes.
This is what it is.
Yes.
This is what it is. So this is a long deal that I don't love how long this deal is. He is now getting $30 million in his age 34 season in 2029-30.
Correct.
This year and next year, which are the $19.5 million years, are going to be fine. I would argue that even his age 33 season, I really like, or age 32 season, I really like Poetl. I think Poetl at 26 is like a totally fine number, honestly. Those last 2 years at 58.5 million feel super aggressive to me for his age 33 and 34 seasons, for a guy that is awesome technically with his ability to get to his screens and very good at using his body and very good at using his different thing, like different little avenues to like create space. But yeah, man, I don't know. That feels like, it feels like a lot. And people are saying in the chat that this is only 5 million guaranteed the last year. I still think it's like not a great deal if it's 5 years, if it's 5 million the last year, because I don't love the second year of the extension even.
Yeah, it's weird. So like he's on a great number for the next 2 years, Sam, right? Like at 19.5 on the next 2 years, that's awesome. This is another one where when I first saw it, it's like, oh, that's not bad for Jakob Poeltl. Like that's okay. But then kind of like with Turner as well, like that could age poorly, because now all of a sudden, as he's entering age 32 season, his number's jumping by almost 7 million and then continues to increase. Now, if it's partially guaranteed on the end of it, that definitely changes it just a little bit. I had not seen that reporting, but
yeah, I have also not seen this reporting that it's 5 million guaranteed. So if someone in the comments wants to shout out where they got that reporting, I would appreciate it. But yeah, so Jake Fisher is reporting that it's 5 million guaranteed. Let's see if we can find what Jake said on Jakob Poeltl. Keep talking while I find this.
Yeah, and then they have a lot of money committed long term for this team, which if this is like the squad that you think is going to take you to the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, sure. It just seems like they keep locking in these long-term deals. They did it with Scotty. BI is not quite as long, but it's 3 years counting this year. IQ's is. Barrett's is actually one that's a little bit shorter, but then now with, Jakob Poeltl. And so I've said this before, 5-year contracts make me nervous, especially with a guy that is in his 30s. So I think it's a fair point. I think this is going to be a great deal for Jakob the first couple years, or for the Raptors having him on that number. I do wonder, to Sam's point, if all of a sudden, even though it's like not a huge number, it's 14% of the cap, 14 to 15 over those 3 years, what that looks like by the time we get to those years.
Yeah. So Jake is saying that it's going to 5 million guaranteed in year 4 with structured language to grow richer. I don't know what the fuck that means. Like he has a trade kicker according to Scotto. Like is the structured language to grow richer that like he's assuming Toronto is gonna move him at some point? Like what's happening here? I don't know. Yeah, very bizarre.
Can we at least get agents to use language we understand whenever they ask these guys to tweet out certain things? More specific language, please.
Maybe we'll come back to this and figure this out in another couple days. If it's 5 million guaranteed on the last year, which only Jake has right now, and has it phrased strangely, like no shots at Jake. I just am somewhat concerned. Like I don't totally understand what he means by has structure to grow richer in that deal.
That's a great line.
Very strange line.
Structure to grow richer. Beautiful.
Structured to grow richer is a new one for me, to be honest with you. Very new one to me.
Yep.
But what I'm most worried about with Poetl is the way that he ages.
Sure.
Because he's not really all that skill based. He is a very like big body who like a huge piece of his skill is movement skill. And we're paying based on in like age 33 year at the very least, based on him continuing to move in the way that he moves. Like Jonas Valančiūnas, I guess like never quite moved as well as Poetl does. Like Jonas is 33 right now. And we've seen like a pretty real decline in his movement. Right?
Yeah.
So, and again, Poetl always moved better than Jonas. I don't want to just sit here and be like, he's going to look like Jonas does now. That's not true. But yeah, I'm a little bit confused. So I'm reading Michael Grange as well, because over at Sportsnet, he has something here as well. Let's see. Yeah, like Grange. I can't see what Grange has here on Poetl. Like I don't think he has a I don't think he has a number here for Poetl in terms of the guarantee, at least. Maybe he said it on the radio or something. And I just missed it, but who knows? Okay. We'll come back to the Raptors at some point and like close the loop on Poetl maybe tomorrow once we have some, or like the next week whenever we have like official details on Poetl, because I would like to see the like deal at some point. Like once it goes through the system, I should be able to like ask some people around it and figure some things out. Okay, so the Hornets today did Tre Mann 3 for 24 million.
Yep. Any
thoughts on Tre Mann for 3 for 24?
Yeah, I feel like that was a good number. I think that was a little lower than what we talked about, right?
Yeah, I think that we said like 3 for 29 to like 34 or something.
I thought it was like
33. Yeah.
The 8 to 12. Maybe we're a little on the higher end of that, but yeah, I think this is a fine deal.
Yeah, Tre Mann, the key for him is just being able to play games at some point. Like just needs to stay healthy. Like obviously missed a significant portion of the season, but those games he did play, he looked like a real combo guard who can get buckets. Like I thought that he really, really looked effective and impactful in those moments. It's just, is he going to continue to be as good as, what we saw in those minutes consistently? Can he bring that every single night? And can he stay on the court? We'll see.
Agreed.
I think that's kind of what it comes down to for him. And like I will say, like there was some up and down with him, even in those games this year, right? Like started the season like dominating, like had 24 in the opener against Houston that they won. I remember watching that game. I was stunned. 27 against Toronto in the fourth game, 23 against Boston in the fifth game. And then, over that little last stretch, he averaged 10 points on 39, 35, 77. In which point, like, it's not a huge, like, the steal is probably an overpay for those last 6 games or 8 games that he played this year. But I think that he has real gifts with the ball in his hand, and I think he's a real pull-up shooter. I would bet on Tre Mann at least being worth the steal and maybe exceeding it.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
And by the way, for the Charlotte Hornets, another ball handler. I really like what they have done, continuing to add ball handlers to this group. They now have options behind LaMelo Ball for when LaMelo unfortunately tends to miss games. That to me is, and frankly, when LaMelo's off the court, because when LaMelo is off the court, this team is a real problem. Like they have no real like chance to succeed right now.
I mean, yeah, they have all of LaMelo Ball, Colin Sexton, Trey Mann, and then you add like not ball in hand, but like defensive minded Josh Green, and then you added the, let alone our guy Sion James, and then you added wings with Liam McNeely, Con Knipple, obviously Brandon Miller. I mean, it's an interesting team, right? Like we'll see how it all comes together. We'll see who ends up, playing well and being a long-term piece, but it's an interesting roster.
I would expect that they take a big leap this year. I don't know that it will result in the playoffs or even the play-in, but like I would expect that they will win 32 or 35 games this year or something. You know what I mean? And that 35 games would be a 16 win improvement. That would be a massive jump and would probably not result in them making the play-in, but like teams that I would still take over them. Like I still think I would take the Celtics over them just with Jalen and Derek White. Obviously the Knicks, I would take the Raptors over them, and I would take the Sixers over them. You take the Cavs, you take the Pacers, even without Halliburton. You take the Bucks, you take the Pistons, you take Orlando, you take Atlanta. I think you take Miami too. So like, I would say Charlotte's in that like 11 to 12 zone right now with Chicago still. Maybe, some of the teams like the Wizards, maybe they take a jump. Maybe, I think Brooklyn's probably going to be quite poor, but I think that they're like on the precipice of potentially getting to like play in contention. Sure. Is what I would say.
If they had a center,
they're going to have to add a center at some point. We love Ryan Kalkbrenner here, but I don't think it can be Mason Plumlee, who they also signed today.
Yeah.
And Ryan Kalkbrenner, like they probably need a real option. Otherwise this team's going to be a real bad defense.
Yeah. Agreed.
Like we love Kalkbrenner. Kalkbrenner's a really good defender, but I don't know if he can play 30 and be like, a real impact defender from day one in the NBA.
Yeah, that would be a big ask.
Okay. Matt Penny, shout out Matt Penny, legend of the podcast, icon, human being that we all love. Shout out Matt Penny legend, Josh Minott, who got 2 years, $5 million from the Boston Celtics. We will never forget you, Josh Minott, nor will we forget Matt Penny. But
shout out the Boston Celtics for the Luka Garza, Josh Minott rotation.
Just wait until they go poach Leonard Miller, baby. We're gonna roll out the
Minnesota Timberwolves couldn't make the rotation.
Iowa Wolves. We're gonna roll out the Iowa Wolves here in the Boston front court. I'm all for it. Yeah, like look, Boston's gonna have to do something in their front court.
It is what it is.
The issue for them is that like the Minott deal pushed them back over the second apron. Like it's an issue. They're gonna have to figure out how to make all of this work financially, because I'm sure they want to get under the tax this year. It would make an immense amount of sense for them to get under the tax this year. But I mean, it probably has to be a minimum at the big position if you're going to do that, right? Yep. And then you just kind of, or maybe you move Simons and like piecemeal it a little bit. Like we've talked about that throughout. Like, is there a Simons deal for a center out there? I mean, the obvious team would be Dallas, but I don't know that they're looking to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for Gafford.
Yeah. So, yeah, and like if it's Gafford, then like does Boston just end up keeping Gafford and then staying in the first apron, right? That doesn't feel.
Yeah, that's
like
true, because that doesn't save him any money. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you'd have to take back more than Gafford, by the way. It wouldn't just be him. Yeah, I just don't know. If they want to get below the tax this year, which there's no guarantee that they do, but I don't know. It feels like a really tricky one to me. It feels like Boston's in a really tough spot if they're trying to like increase their flexibility for when Tatum gets back, which is what I would absolutely prioritize. But also trying to like be borderline contending this year. I mean, like, look, like it's their best big right now for me is either Garza or Xavier Tillman, probably. Yeah. I think that some Boston fans would say Keita, but I've never been a huge Keita guy, honestly. Yeah, I mean, is there an innings eating big out there in a trade involving Simons that you can do? The thing is, like, I just don't know if Boston really cares to fill that role yet.
Sure.
Right? Like,
yeah,
I just don't know that they have to.
Just do it by committee, figure it out. Yeah, I mean, they took back so much salary, and I know they didn't take all of it in the Porzingis deal, but they took back so much salary that moving Holiday and Porzingis didn't lower the number as much as kind of what we had talked about in their preview. So, but they have till the deadline to do it, which it seems like that's probably would be the time when they go ahead and move on from Simons. So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine they're still looking around. I mean, I think Jared Weiss at The Athletic has reported that they're looking around at Simon's deals already. For sure.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just I don't know who the deal is the issue. Like, I don't know where that deal comes from. Like, what team tries to do this?
Yeah,
because Orlando's kind of filled the role.
Yep.
I mean, the Kings have like a million of these guys, right? The Spurs like don't really need to do it, I don't think. I'm like trying to think of teams that could use like just like a little bit of scoring juice. I mean, is there any way that they would do like Simons for John Collins and a couple of picks or something? Because it would still be the same like expiring deal. It'd just be a better roster fit immediately.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Utah has gotten off of 2 of those guards, so maybe.
Yeah.
But I feel like they just got off those guys. I mean, obviously he's better, but then 1 for sure. Both.
Yeah, like you've Simons, Markkanen, you know, Keontae George, Isaiah Collier, and then like you obviously did Ace instead of doing, you know, one of the guards that you could have done like Trey Johnson. Like maybe Simons for Collins does work a little bit.
Sure. And it's just a better roster fit for Boston.
Yeah. I think it's going to be easier to move Simons though at the deadline because I think Simons is the kind of player that teams tend to value at the deadline. Yeah.
Well, especially when injuries are happened or they've realized this guy's not making the jump they thought, or they made a jump as a team, but now they're missing that scoring punch. So,
yeah, like if Karis LeVert gets hurt, the Pistons will absolutely be interested in Anthony Simons.
There you go. Again. Yeah, like if they're,
you know what I mean?
If they're decent and something happens or JI isn't as good as they thought or whatever, all of a sudden, yeah, like, okay, let's go get Anthony Simons to make this playoff push like they did with Schroeder last year. Sure.
Yeah. So,
but they're not going to do that right now.
Yeah. There's no reason to do it now because they filled their role, but that's just an example of a team where like, I think it's going to be way easier to move that money than to move the Collins money, but like Collins makes more sense. Right. You know, someone brought up Simons for Obi Toppin. Like, I just don't think this is a Pacers guy, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about that. Like he does fit the, you know, chucking threes and, you know, letting it rock a little bit, but you'd have to give up multiple guys to do this. And that doesn't track for me with them.
Yeah. And then that backcourt gets, I mean, for Indiana, I'd want that to be a long-term move. I don't think it makes sense to do it just for this year. For me, I want it. And then it's like, okay, well now you have, you know, like him and Mathurin coming off the bench together. Like, does that make sense? Maybe you move on from Mathurin in a different deal or something, but yeah, interesting.
It's interesting. Yeah. I don't see it for the Pacers. Like there's a team that, you know, has an injury in the backcourt, obviously. And we brought up the idea of Kuzma and AJ Green, but you know, that makes Milwaukee better. Does it make Milwaukee better? Yeah, I'd say so. Because I think Kuzma was pretty bad.
Well, and yeah, and you like he's playing at the 3 there. With Giannis, Turner, and Portis, I think you're okay. Like to hold that down. I mean, yeah. I just think that's the type of scoring juice they could use in the backcourt.
That's kind of what my thought was too.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if AJ Green is enough for Boston to do that.
Yeah.
Because you take on the extra year of Kuzma.
You're taking on extra money. Yeah.
Yeah. But he then becomes an expire. The problem is that it's harder to break him into smaller bits. If I'm Boston, I'm trying to break. This is the deal. This is the deal. Shout out to Shane. Simons to Milwaukee, John Collins to Boston, and then Utah gets Kuzma with like another asset. I mean, it's not the deal because goodness, Kyle Kuzma being Ace Bailey's vet seems scary to me. But if they, got the asset right for Kuzma, that could work actually.
Yeah.
That's not a bad deal to me. That's something that actually kind of works.
So what, like the assets are just going to, so that could still be AJ Green and then like this some seconds coming somewhere.
Yeah, seconds all around.
Sure.
I don't know if Milwaukee has any more seconds to do after the Connaughton deal, but like, maybe Boston would do. Yeah, like Boston's not going to want to do that either. Maybe if Boston gets AJ Green, they would send out like a pick or something. If it's Collins, right? I don't know. There's something there. I think there's like something that tracks there for me.
Yeah. Because if I'm Utah, I want something because again, I'm taking on an extra year. And while that doesn't like isn't a huge deal, I don't know. They may want the cap space next offseason to make a move and a splash in free agency. So
I think they probably do for what it's worth. So that actually doesn't work, I guess.
Yeah.
Unless you'd be able to get off the Kuzma deal like on an expiring and give up some assets for it.
I say it just like every time we get to something, it's like, well, then this team has to make another move to make it happen or for it to make
sense. No, it doesn't work in the way that I thought it would. Yeah. Kuzma to Milwaukee is something that I like. Or not Kuzma, I'm sorry. Simons to Milwaukee is something that I do like and would be trying to figure out if I was Milwaukee, but I just don't know that we have the construction yet that works. We'll keep talking about it.
Yep.
We will keep going. Bryce, that's all we got. Those are all the moves from today. Tell the people where they can find your work.
Yep. At Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. I have breakdowns over some of your favorite players or your favorite teams and players they've signed. I know the Jake LaRavia, so if you're a Lakers fan, and the Nickeil Alexander-Walker, if you're a Hawks fan, have been pretty good hits. And if you're interested, like I have one out on Karis LeVert, and I will have one out on Duncan Robinson tomorrow. The Pistons Pulse will go live tomorrow. If you want to check that out for whatever reason, if you're a Pistons fan or just an NBA fan that likes listening, me and Amari Sankofa II. Otherwise, Game Theory Podcast right here with the very fast growing YouTube channel. Thank you. Like, subscribe, rate, review, all of that stuff. I'm here with Sam Vecenie.
We have to do some super chats real quick, Bryce. Shout out to Brian Garces, who said 10 minutes on Denver, managing to offload Saric, please. I think we went for probably 15, not all on Saric, but on how much we love Denver. So shout out to you, Brian.
Great
Ron
deal.
Burgundy.
Like real quick, I do find myself going like, did Denver identify that whenever it came out that Sacramento needed to save some money so they didn't have to sign and trade? Or did Sacramento go to Denver? Like, I would love to know who initiated, because I think if Denver identified that, that's really smart from the front office.
I've heard really good things about Ben Tenzer. I haven't gotten to meet him yet. I will probably try to make that happen at Summer League at some point. But I have heard that he is really sharp from people that I think are really sharp in front offices. So I am excited to meet him at some point because I've heard good things. From Ron Burgundy 79, Tyrese Halliburton and Rick Carlisle's system have helped Myles Turner a ton. I don't think the Pacers want anything to do with the fourth year for a guy that has a real history of lower body issues. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's ultimately probably what stopped them from doing it, right?
I think it's fair. You've talked me into this a little bit more in terms of like understanding why they let him walk. And I don't disagree that this system in the same way that like Jokic as a player helps make somebody like Turner look good, I still will just say that it can all be true. And it can also be true that replacing him could prove to be an issue. I'm just interested to see how it plays out. And again, I hope I'm wrong, because I love this Pacers team. I hope that they are able to identify and acquire the replacement. So while I agree with all of this, I still stand by, let's see if he was worth keeping, because replacing him actually ends up being more than the cost, or, whatever, or proves to not even be possible. So we'll see how it plays out, but fair points.
From Shabugan, this is the price for having one of the best players in the world on your team. Could someone tell this to Pelinka and the Lakers, please? Yeah, I mean,
I like Jake LaRavia.
I like the LaRavia deal too, but like it is, I'm interested to see what they do at the big position. I'm going to withhold judgment on the Lakers until we see like what their plan is at the center position.
Yes.
I think that's, I want to be fair to them. I want to figure out what's going on. Right now, it doesn't look sweet, but let's withhold judgment. Shout out.
Who is the best? Who's the best center on the roster right now?
I mean,
LeBron?
I was going to say, I don't know if they actually have a center on the roster, do they?
It's LeBron. LeBron's the best center option on the roster. Amazing stuff.
I mean, like, remove LeBron, it's literally Maxi Kleba, I think.
Or Trey Jemison on a two-way.
Yeah, it's not great. Also, shout out Shabugan. Are Indy now in the 8 in sweepstakes? I think we answered that.
We talked about it.
We were going through it.
Yeah. About how they had signed him to an offer sheet in restricted free agency a few years ago.
From Little Gaming Moments, if the Pistons head coaching legend Monty Williams can't get Ayton to play hard, nobody can. That's amazing. My goodness. That was a tire fire across the board for everybody. From Connor Andrews, Nigel Hayes to the Suns might be the best move of the offseason. I don't know about best move of the offseason, but I think he's a rotation player. Have you watched any Fener?
I haven't. No. I'll have to turn on.
I strongly recommend people watch Fenerbahce, which is, where Nigel Hayes is coming from. He played with Fener, over the last 3 years, realistically. Hayes is awesome. Like Hayes is a really, really good player.
I remember
really
him from college at Wisconsin more than anything professionally.
Yeah, wasn't like a great NBA player when he was here. It was, just for a cup of tea in 2018, but like has really taken that kind of next step up as a shooter and as a playmaker.
Yeah. You can see it in the numbers.
Over the last, this year he averaged 15 points a game, shooting 46, 38, 88. He's like a real shooter now from three. Has some real size, real length. He's like 6'8" with like a 7'4" wingspan, powerful, physical. Nigel Hayes I think he's a rotation player. And part of the reason I say to watch Fener is that Sarunas Jasikevičius is their coach. He's awesome. Like, that team runs some of the sweetest shit that you will find like in world basketball. I fully recommend them. I had an assistant in college who kind of steals things from Euro teams pretty regularly, kind of tell me to check them out. And I did. And I was like, oh no, this is actually like quite fun. This is an awesome team. So fully recommend them. Also from Little Gaming Moments, all Denver needs now is Josh Okogie. Sure, I'm into it. Makes sense.
Phoenix has completely overhauled that front court in one offseason.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, Okogie, energy guy coming off the bench. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't know that I have any strong takes on that one way or another. From Minott, credit to Sam for having Anson D on his shelf. Go Spurs, go. You have definitely never seen Anson D, Bryce, I assume.
I'm glad you read that super chat because I would have embarrassed myself.
French Canadian film. So do you know who Denis Villeneuve is? The guy that directed the Dune movies.
I've watched one of those. 2 of them,
Okay.
I think.
So On Sunday is one of his first films. I think it's like his, third film or something like that, right? Great movie, fucked up movie. Don't think I would recommend Bryce watching On Sunday.
Appreciate it.
From Daniel Garrett, speaking of that, who's the best teams to watch for stealing plays? Yeah, I mean, Fenner was my pick this year. I think Paris has always run some fun stuff. Like when Isalo was there, like some of their ball screen stuff was really creative, the way that they kind of got into it. It depends what kind of offense you're trying to run too. Like, different teams have different things that they're trying to accomplish. I'm also like not an expert when it comes to this, because like a lot of the time when I'm watching European basketball, I'm like targeting specific players, as opposed to like different things. I watched Fenner because someone told me to do that. This is one of those things where I'm sure that there are like these unbelievable coaches like in the Belgian league somewhere or something like that, or they're running these crazy intricate actions. I'm just not as good at as good about finding these things as a lot of other people are.
Yeah, I'm the same, because when I'm turning on one of those films, I'm essentially just watching. Like when I'm watching Noah Pinda, I'm only watching Noah Pinda and not like necessarily focused on. Like sometimes you'll catch those cool actions as you're watching it, but it's not something you're fully locked in on.
Yeah, and then finally from John Zemeckis, future role players as prospects, do you prefer lower usage players who have a similar role to what they project to, or higher usage where it's harder to project?
I feel more confident in my evaluation on guys that are playing their roles, I think.
I much prefer higher use. At least like you can't be a low usage player, in my opinion. The track record on like low usage guys entering the NBA is very low. It is very poor. We've talked about that in regard to Drake Powell, actually, is the name where we've talked about that extensively. I'm a little bit lower on Powell because he had a 13 usage rate this year, which is just like markedly low. In fact, there has not been a player drafted since 2008 who had the low usage rate that Drake Powell had this year. I would prefer to scale a player back personally.
Yeah. I have to think about this one, because I think sometimes I've seen it both ways. Like I think about Carter Bryant, and I love Carter Bryant because I'm like, I saw him kind of like, I saw him do what he did in that role that I think he ultimately gets in the NBA. And then I think about a guy like Trey Johnson, where like one of my hiccups or holdups was like, this isn't exactly the shot diet he's going to have in the NBA. I think his role is going to be a little bit different. So maybe I'm talking about, like, I think each player is a little bit unique in terms of that. It's a really good question, John. I'm talking circles around it right now that I need to think more about. So I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Carter Bryant's another good example. I mean, again, like the track record of guys under 17 usage is quite low, and Carter's was right around that mark. I think it was like between 16 and 17. So that tends to be the cutoff, really, is
because
that's where it gets concerning.
I love a guy like Neek Clifford, but it's because he had high usage, but I also got to see him do the role specific things. Like I believe in Neek because I've watched him off ball cut and relocate and move and those type of things, even though he was high usage. So I guess my answer would be the guys that scare me are the ones who I don't see any of the low usage skill sets that I think they need to be successful. If it's only on ball usage and they're not doing the requisite other things, those are the ones that kind of scare me. Or to your point, the super low usage where it's like, okay, if you're not even doing more of this in college, how are you going to be able to do even the same thing whenever you go up a level? So I think it's the extremes that make me nervous.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good way to put it too. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. Okay. We're going to have to call it there, guys. We appreciate you all immensely for hanging out during this live stream. Thank you all for listening. Bryce has already said where his things are. Go to The Athletic, keep me employed. I will be occasionally chipping in on some of the live blog stuff for free agency, but more here and there than anything. I think that's all we got for tonight. Until next time, we'll talk soon.